Hello, my name is Emil Ahangarzadeh. I'm a coordinator here at the San Diego County Office of Education working with secondary language arts programs. It's my pleasure to provide you with an overview of the Common Core Standards Initiative. The Common Core State Standards were spearheaded by the National Governors Association and the Council of Chief State Officers. They were developed during the summer of 2009. A public comment period then proceeded and was concluded on April 2nd of 2010. The final Common Core standards were released by June 2nd, 2010, and the California State Board of Education adopted them on August 2nd of 2010. What's important to understand about the Common Core Standards document is that it was developed through a state-led effort. That is, federal dollars were not used to create this document. Therefore, although a majority of the states in our union have adopted the Common Core State Standards, technically, these standards are not national standards. As you may know, the 10th Amendment provisions rights not enumerated in the United States Constitution to states themselves. This is why each state may select to consider and adopt the standards independently. This process for creating common standards is different because it is state-led and has the support of educators across the country, as well as prominent education, business, and state leader organizations, including the Council of Chief State School Officers and the National Governors Association Center for Best Practices, as well as several other groups such as Achieve Incorporated, ACT, the College Board, the National Association of State Boards of Education, the Alliance for Excellent Education, the Hunt Institute, the National Parent-Teacher Association, the State Higher Education Executive Officers, the American Association of School Administrators, and the Business Roundtable. Additionally, it's important to understand that there are two versions of the Common Core Standards, the original document and the California adopted version. What you have available to you in the binder is the California version. The primary difference in the two documents is that the California version standards include augmentations and additions, all of which are printed in bold and underlined. The Common Core State Standards drafting process relied on teachers and standards experts from across the country. In addition, there were many state experts that came together to create the most thoughtful and transparent process of standard setting. This was only made possible by many states working together. The Common Core Standards have made careful use of a large and growing body of evidence. The evidence base includes scholarly research, surveys on what skills are required of students entering college and the workforce training programs, assessment data identifying college and career-ready performance, and comparisons to standards from high-performing states and nations. In English language arts, the Common Core Standards built on the firm foundation of the National Assessment of Educational Progress, or NAEP frameworks, in reading and writing, which draw on extensive scholarly research and evidence. Part of the NAEP research has shown that there is a greater need for expository text. You will see the introduction of this type of reading and writing in the Common Core California State Standards at much earlier grades than California is used to, and that there is much more exposure to it as students move up the grades. In mathematics, the standards draw on conclusions from the Trends in International Mathematics and Science Study, or TIMSS, and other studies of high-performing countries that the traditional United States mathematics curriculum must become substantially more coherent and focused in order to improve student achievement, addressing the problem of a curriculum that is a mile wide and an inch deep. English language learners and students with disabilities were high priorities when developing these standards. You should have available to you the 6-page introductory documents which state that students who are English learners are held to the same high expectations outlined in the Common Core State Standards as their monolingual counterparts. The document may be found in the Resources section. These students may require additional time, appropriate instructional support, and aligned assessments as they acquire both English language proficiency and content area knowledge. However, the Common Core California state standards do not provide significant guidance regarding how the Common Core California state standards should be applied relative to the needs of these standards. The California State Board of Education adopted the 6-page document that the original Common Core state standards document includes regarding these populations. States are responsible for developing frameworks for how to go about meeting these needs. We anticipate that these needs will be addressed in the coming years as California develops new frameworks incorporating the Common Core California state standards. In the same document, students with disabilities, students eligible under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or IDEA, must be challenged to excel within the general curriculum and be prepared for success in their post-school lives, including college and/or careers. These common standards provide a historic opportunity to improve access to rigorous academic content standards for students with disabilities. However, just like English language learners, the new standards do not provide significant guidance regarding how the Common Core California state standards should be applied relative to the needs of these students. We also anticipate that these needs will be addressed as California develops new frameworks incorporating the Common Core California state standards. So why are the Common Core California state standards important? Well, because they prepare students with the knowledge and skills they need to succeed in college and work, ensure consistent expectations regardless of students' zip code, and provide educators, parents, and students with clear, focused guideposts. A state will have adopted these standards when the standards authorizing body within the state has taken formal action to adopt and implement the Common Core. Just like in California, a state adopts 100% of the Common Core K-12 standards in English language arts and mathematics, word for word, with an option of adding up to an additional 15% of standards on top of the core. As of today, the states seen on the screen have adopted the Common Core state standards. 2 states have not been involved with the development of these standards, nor do they intend on adopting the Common Core state standards, and those states are Alaska and Texas. All states will be responsible for demonstrating that they have adhered to this definition of adoption. Key design considerations are outlined in the introduction of the Common Core state standards. You can read more detail on your own at a later time if you download the document from the main Common Core website at corestandards.org. The introductory front matter of the original document was also not included in California's adoption. As Kim stated before, an appointed commission was assembled by the governor as well as California's legislative bodies to review and make a recommendation to the California State Board of Education as to whether or not California should adopt these standards. Remember, the commission was only charged with reviewing and providing recommendations on the content standards. The anchors and the appendices did not fall within their responsibility for review. The content of these documents could be part of the review by a framework commission, and it is probable that some, and possible that most, of the content of the appendices could be included in the frameworks. The considerations were centered on the College and Career Readiness, or CCR, anchor standards and grade-specific standards, a focus on results rather than means, and an integrated model of literacy. The CCR anchor standards anchor the document and define general cross-disciplinary literacy expectations that must be met for students to be prepared to enter college and workforce training programs ready to succeed. California did not include the anchor standards. However, they are the framework around which the standards are organized. The K-8 standards are grade-level specific. The 9-10 and 11-12 standards are couched in 2-year bands, much like our current California standards. The standards leave room for determination of how goals should be reached and what additional topics should be addressed. The English language arts standards are divided into 4 strands. These strands are commensurate with the current California English language arts standards definition of domains. The strands include reading, writing, speaking and listening, and language strands for conceptual clarity, yet the document reflects their interconnectedness. Research and media skills and understandings are embedded throughout the standards rather than treated in a separate section. We'll show you some examples of this later. Students' literacy development is not only the responsibility of the English language arts teachers. Teachers in other areas have a role in this development as well. This expectation will become clearer as we explain the structure of the standards in the next modules. While the standards delineate specific expectations in reading, writing, speaking, listening, and language, each standard need not be a separate focus for instruction and assessment. Often, several standards can be addressed by a single rich task. Lastly, particularly in the math standards, the architects of the standards took great measures to ensure that a focus is placed on coherent instruction and assessment processes. The introduction of the Common Core State Standards also describes what is not covered by the standards, the intentional design limitations. They say that the standards do set grade-level standards, but do not define the intervention methods or materials. The standards do allow for the widest possible range of students to participate fully, permitting appropriate accommodations, but they do not define the full range of supports appropriate for English learners and students with special needs. The standards define general cross-disciplinary literacy expectations, but they do not define the whole of what it means to be college and career ready. The standards define what all students are expected to know and be able to do. They do not define how teachers should teach. They focus on what is most essential, but they do not describe all that can or should be taught. The standards do establish a baseline for advanced learners. They do not define the nature of advanced work. Once the Common Core State Standards were designed and approved, states then took a look at them knowing that they could add up to 15% to the Common Core State Standards. So criteria was developed to help the appointed commission make recommendations to the State Board of Education to determine what should be added, if anything. The criteria that guided their decisions were that the additions needed to substantially enhance the original standards as laid out in the original document, address a perceived gap, be defensible to classroom practitioners, keep the original standards intact, ensure the rigor of California's existing standards is maintained. The architects of the Common Core Standards Initiative combined the best work of states, and in fact, California's standards played a large part in developing the foundation for these standards. Because of this, California did not necessarily add the full 15% that was allowed. For example, in terms of word count for English language arts, California added approximately 8%. In order to identify what was added, the Commission presented a draft to the State Board of Education with California's additions indicated in bold and underlined font. Some examples of California's additions include more specificity to what was already included. For example, analysis of text features and informational text is included in the original grades 6 through 12 English language arts standards, but in grade 6, the term in popular media was added to standard number 5. So the standard reads, analyze the use of text features, for example, graphics, headers, captions, in popular media. California included career and consumer documents in writing in grade 8. Career and consumer documents were not specifically called out in the Common Core, so the clause including career development documents, for example, simple business letters and job applications, was added to the Common Core standards in order to add specificity. Penmanship was added to language strand, all the way up to grade 4. The original Common Core standards only included specific standards addressing penmanship in kindergarten and grade 1. A set of standards referred to as the number system in grade 8 were added, which reads in part, apply and extend previous understandings of addition and subtraction to add and subtract rational numbers. Represent addition and subtraction on a horizontal or vertical number line diagram. Geometry in grade 7 was added. An example reads, solve real-life and mathematical problems involving volume of cylinders, cones, and spheres. Obviously, this is not an exhaustive list. Remember, in order to identify what was added, the Commission presented a draft to the Board with California's additional 15% indicated in bold and underlined font. So with that background information, we're ready to move on to the next modules, which will look at the English language arts and then the math standards a little closer.